think we'll get started shortly. If you can take a seat. Good afternoon. I have to remember these days is people who are joining us online. So good day, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. And welcome to our first in-person seminar for this spring semester series, Perspectives in Global Development. We met last week. It was a virtual event, but I'm excited to see so many people here. And I'm sure you're all smiling under the masks, I can see from here. So those who are not in Ithaca, it's quite a cold day here. So my name is Ed Mabaya. Quick housekeeping announcement. Those that are taking this class for credit, please remember to sign the attendance form at the back of the room before or after the seminar. I'm joined here by Professor Terry Tucker. Those who don't know him, he's the partner in crime, the other facilitator and instructor for this course. Well, I'm really delighted to introduce our speaker today, who I've known for a while, and I'm glad he was able to come and visit us here at Cornell today. Mr. Kola Masha is the founder and managing director of Babban Gona. He's the managing director. Before then, he was the managing director and CEO of a subsidiary of Nortec Group, one of Nigeria's leading agricultural conglomerates, where he actually led an effort to raise $130 million in equity. He brings significant leadership experience in corporate finance, business development, sales, marketing, product development, operations from across 4 continents, with multiple global companies, including GE, Norte, Abiomed. In addition, he brings extensive public sector experience when he was a senior advisor to the Nigerian Minister of Agriculture. I think that's Dr. Kin Adesina, who went on to win the World Food Prize. He received numerous awards, including the first leader in history for a profit social enterprise to win the prestigious Kola Award in social entrepreneurship. He has an MBA from Harvard and an MS in mechanical engineering from MIT. Please don't boo him for that. But he's here today to share with us lessons from the Babban Gona, how farming can employ Africa's young workforce and help build peace. Please help me welcome to Cornell. And with that, Kola, thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you for the very kind invitation. It's my absolute pleasure to be here. So my friends, we have a problem in Africa. That problem is rising insecurity. Since 1997, researchers at the University of Sussex have monitored global trends in armed conflict. Their research clearly shows that the number of armed conflicts in Africa have grown 7-fold in a decade. Let's think about that. 7-fold in a single decade. Why is this? We believe as oxygen is to fire, so are unemployed youth to insecurity. And there are a lot of unemployed youth on the continent. Unemployed youth like Sandra, who on a Saturday morning in March 2014 woke up excited at the prospects of getting a coveted job at the Nigerian Immigration Services. She kissed her daughter goodbye and left home, never to return. Sandra and about 15 other young Nigerians died that day applying for a job. In the ensuing stampede, as hundreds of thousands of people applied for just 5,000 open positions. In Nigeria alone, conservatively, a wave of 20 million youth entering an oversaturated labor force in 20 years from 1991 to 2010 caused youth unemployment to skyrocket, triggering not 1, not 2, but 3 insurgencies. Today, with a median age of 18, half of our population, more than 80 million people, approximately the population of Germany, the world's 4th largest economy, are under the age of 18 and will be entering the workforce in 20 years from 2010 to 2030. My friends, I ask you, If a wave of 20 million youth triggered Niger Delta militancy, the herdsman crisis, Boko Haram, I ask you, what will 4 times that number do? People who often hear these statistics say, wow, this is a ticking time bomb. I think not. The bomb has actually already exploded. The bomb has exploded in towns like Port Harcourt in southern Nigeria. Growing up, Port Harcourt was to most Nigerians as the south of France was to Europeans. A lovely garden city people dreamed about visiting. It was for this reason that in 2007, when I moved back to Nigeria to start my new job, I was thrilled at the prospects of moving to Port Harcourt. As my Arik Air flight descended on a warm tropical afternoon in late 2007 to Port Harcourt, the plane was really so low I could practically touch the oil palm plantations as I flew over them. As I exited the airport, I was shocked when I was greeted by not 1, but 2 policemen with some of the largest guns I'd ever seen. As we tore through traffic, sirens blaring to get to the hotel to beat the impending curfew at sundown, it became clear that my vision of the garden city of my youth was a distant memory. Unfortunately, the insecurity caused by the Niger Delta insurgency in the region had completely obliterated any remnants of the garden city. Port Harcourt was trapped in a vicious downward spiral where disenchanted, unemployed youth were easily recruited by malicious leaders of insurgent groups, which increased violence, triggered further economic decline of the city, trapping the population in extreme poverty and leading to a mass migration to other regions, particularly Europe. Over dinner one evening, a journalist friend narrated an intense experience he had traveling deep into the creeks and swamps surrounding Port Harcourt to interview young insurgents. One exchange with a young insurgent struck him. When asked why he joined the Niger Delta insurgency, the insurgent responded, and I paraphrase, "Why would I want to sleep in a disheveled hammock in a swamp, attacked every night by giant mosquitoes as hyenas attack a juicy buffalo? I would rather be a plumber in Port Harcourt, but there was no work, and I had no choice. I must do something to survive." Sadly, across Nigeria and many parts of Africa and the world, a downward spiral cast a shadow of fear, anxiety, and desperation for millions of people. In Nigeria alone, a broader crisis could trigger a migrant crisis more than 10 times the current crisis impacting Europe, as Nigeria is 50% of the population of West Africa, comprising over tens of millions of potential migrants. Such migration, unfortunately, exacerbates political tensions in Western countries and has been a key contributor to the rise of populism in many countries. To do my part to solve this challenge, in 2012, I moved to a tiny village in northern Nigeria, to the center of the area most recently impacted by the spread of insurgencies, brutal bombings, and searing poverty, with an idea. If we make farming much more profitable for smallholder farmers, could we disrupt the downward spiral of poverty and violence and create opportunities for dignified and fulfilling work for this very demographic most at risk of being led astray, the rural youth? We knew that in the latter half of the last century, Thailand had faced similar challenges to Nigeria. They had successfully disrupted the cycle of violence and poverty, triggered by high youth unemployment and ensuing violence. Over the last 40 years, Thailand had become a model for agricultural-led economic development, where today they produce nearly 2 million cars a year, more than the United Kingdom, with more than 30% of its workforce still as highly commercial, profitable, small farmers, with an unemployment rate that is less than 1%. How did Thailand do it? In the 80s, Thailand dramatically improved the productivity of its small farmers, coupled with devaluation of their currency, and began to dominate exports for key agricultural produce. With this strength, Thailand attracted foreign direct investment, a significant portion of which came from Japan, to start to process these agricultural raw materials and began to export higher valued products like starch for cassava. Finally, coupled with investment in education, Thailand expanded to even higher valued manufacturing. To turn our idea into reality and follow a path similar to Thailand, we started our journey at the epicenter of this crisis in northern Nigeria, with a goal to develop an innovative technology platform to make farming much more profitable for smallholder farmers, turning at-risk youth into successful entrepreneurs. This in turn to stimulate local economies, disrupting the cycle of poverty and violence. A critical challenge to overcome as we began was how to sell a young man or young woman who had seen their father, mother, grandfather, and grandmother struggle in poverty as farmers, that farming was an opportunity. A young man from northern Nigeria who, for today's discussion, we will call Saminu, made it clear to me that this would not be easy. Saminu grew up in a beautiful village. He tells wondrous stories of playing for hours with his friends, running up and down the magnificent rock formations that dot the countryside around his home. Despite that beauty, Saminu knew the first chance he got, he would leave. He never wanted to be a farmer. Growing up, he said, his parents worked so hard as farmers, barely getting by. As he said, they had babu, nothing. Small farmers like Saminu, his family, do not have the cash to buy the farm products to pair with their hard work to succeed. When their meager harvest comes in, desperate for cash, they would sell most of it at fire sale prices. If only they could wait 6 months, they could get up to 50% better prices. Hence, as soon as Saminu could, he left for the city, but soon realized that life was not easy. He'd borrowed from his uncle a very old motorcycle. You know, Ed, I'm sure you've seen these types of motorcycles that where the tires are more patches than tires. To become a motorcycle taxi driver. He lived in constant fear that his precious, tattered motorcycle would be snatched away from him as it once was. Thankfully, he got it back. But he knew friends who were not so lucky. Friends who, after they lost their motorcycles, became destitute. Angry, these young men set out to wreak vengeance on a society they felt had turned its back on them. Saminu told me they joined insurgent groups, often serving as getaway drivers in bombings and kidnappings. To end this vicious cycle of insecurity, we must make farming a viable choice for youth. We must ensure that through farming, these youth on their small farms can earn enough money to make a life for themselves, to make a future. The question now is how? 100 years ago in the US, my grandfather was a poor small farmer with similar challenges to Saminu. Yet, he was able to chart a path out of poverty for himself and my mother. He did this through the power of cooperatives. Inspired by my grandfather, and with the generous support from the Eisenhower Fellowship Program, I set out to study cooperatives as an Eisenhower Fellow. I traveled for nearly 2 months, visiting dozens of farmer organizations, from tiny 25-member organic co-ops in Pennsylvania to $30 billion farmer cooperatives in Minnesota. I had extensive and passionate conversations with the leadership of these organizations to better understand their genesis and key challenges they faced on their journey. From these conversations, a pattern emerged. A strong farmer organization requires 3 things. First, these organizations had committed grassroots level leaders, fellow farmers leading fellow farmers. Second, these organizations had access to professional management to deliver services efficiently and effectively, particularly important for high-volume, low-margin businesses such as agricultural staple crop production. Finally, they had access to significant amounts of debt investment to scale. Recognizing Africa had committed grassroots leaders, we simply developed a model to bring the two missing pieces, the professional management and investment to scale. We called it Babban Gona, which means great farm in the language of northern Nigeria. Upon arriving in that tiny village in insecurity-ravaged northern Nigeria in 2012 to launch our Babban Gona solution, we knew that first we needed to understand the true challenges faced by smallholder farmers. So I became a smallholder farmer. I leased 1.5 hectare farm next to a pristine lake with a towering mango tree that I would often rest under to let the searing midday sun pass by, and set out to farm it myself. This was an invaluable experience, and it gave me deep insights on the unique challenges smallholders faced. Some of these challenges were quite predictable, like how I struggled to access quality agricultural inputs, while some were slightly less predictable. I remember being so proud of my little farm that one afternoon coming back to find a mammoth cow that had sauntered into the farm and was cutting a path through my prized corn like a hungry caterpillar having its final meal before it enters a cocoon. With that somewhat traumatizing experience as a smallholder farmer under my belt, we set out to launch our first season of Babban Gona. We were blessed to hire our first two passionate team members, one of which has grown to become one of our senior executives within the organization today, 10 years on. We traveled from community to community with farmers, talking to them under neem trees, in mud pits, in an effort to share our ideas and recruit farmer members. We failed woefully that first year, barely recruiting about 100 brave souls. But we persevered, we kept doing what we promised, slowly we gained people's trust, and through our customers sharing their experiences with other farmers, we grew. Over the last decade, with a passionate and committed team, coupled with the help of our many partners, we've grown dramatically. Today, we've become the largest corn-producing entity in Africa and one of the top 10 farming operations on the planet. This season, we're farming about 170,000 acres of corn with our members. Over the decade-long journey, the Babban Gona solution has created impact in three ways. First, we've consistently enabled our members to achieve net incomes of more than double their peers by improving crop yields per hectare, reducing cost of production, and increasing unit price of the produce they market. Second, we made progress in halting the cycle of poverty and violence by turning unemployed youth at risk of conducting violence acts into successful agricultural entrepreneurs, with nearly 70% of our membership being youth, when compared with the average farmer in Nigeria that is between the ages of 50 and 55 years old. Finally, we created prosperous communities as we better the lives of our farmers, as growth in violence has reduced, and individuals, families, and economies prosper. This journey to better the lives of our smallholder farmer members is exemplified by young men like Saminu, who left the hardships of the city to return home to join us, along the way returning his borrowed, tattered motorcycle. As a member of Babban Gona, Saminu received extensive training and exceptionally comprehensive package of products and services, 10 times the size of a typical agricultural development program, including tailored soil health products, incredible seeds, and even the empty bag, needle, and the thread that he sews up the product at harvest. He even accessed harvest mechanization to reduce the back-breaking work that often scares many youth away, all on credit. At harvest, Saminu dropped off the corn he wanted to market, and he was thrilled when every quarter, bam, bam, he gets a nice alert on his phone as he earns profits as we sold his maize for him. Fast forward 3 years, Saminu has earned enough money to buy 3 goats for his mother to start a goat rearing business, owns his own retail shop, and purchased not 1, but 2 motorcycles with vanity license plates, Babban Gona. As we make our member farmers wealthier, we are also very focused on ensuring that they are adequately adapted to climate change, while ensuring we do our part to mitigate for the impact of climate change. Agriculture is extremely vulnerable to climate change and its negative impact, and are felt in the form of reduced crop yields and more frequent extreme weather shocks, affecting crops and livestock alike. Farmers in Nigeria with no viable means to increase their yields often engage in unsustainable agricultural practices, such as crop burning, that increases the effects of climate change. As a result, Babban Gona has made climate-smart agriculture a core focus of our business. Our efforts are centered around climate change mitigation initiatives and building farmers' resilience to climate change-related shocks. Our climate change mitigation initiatives include reduced deforestation to improve absorption of carbon, reduced crop burning to reduce carbon emission, optimized agro-input use to reduce carbon emission. In addition, we've piloted models to enable farmers access larger amounts of organic fertilizer to reduce the long-term use of inorganic fertilizer, further reducing farmers' carbon footprint. In addition, we have also piloted a program to incentivize farmers to return their crop residue back to the soil in an effort to increase soil organic carbon storage. We are currently looking for partners to enable us to scale up these highly impactful programs. Finally, over the last several years, Babban Gona has provided unique hermetic storage solutions to preserve the quality of our members' farmer grains post-harvest, reducing post-harvest losses dramatically. Food loss is a critical driver in climate change as it creates inefficiencies and supply chains that cause needless hectares of land to be farmed and for produce to be transported, in turn reducing carbon emissions. To build our members' resilience to climate change-related shocks, we have implemented innovative solutions to increase their productivity and profitability, developed innovative insurance programs to provide disaster relief, launching not 1, not 2, but 3 innovative new technology insurance programs, and provided them improved technologies such as drought-tolerant seeds. My friends, in the 20 years from 2010 to 2030, close to 400 million Saminus are entering the African workforce, and potentially half of them will have opportunities in agriculture with models similar to Babban Gona. To unlock these opportunities through these types of models, smallholders would require $150 billion in financing per year. This is a big number. If we tap commercial debt, however, it is a small number. It's only 0.1% of all the debt in the world today. That's just 10 cents out of every $100. For this reason, we designed our model to be very different from conventional agricultural development efforts. In a few short years, we showed our model works, is high impact, and can turn a profit, enabling us to attract commercial investors who don't traditionally finance small farmers in Africa. We accomplish this by leveraging debt investments from social investors to de-risk us, crowdfunding in 3 to 4 times more debt from commercial investors. At the heart of our success to date has been our ability to create a model that is financially sustainable, enabling us to scale primarily via debt. To understand how we have accomplished this, we must first understand the 2 critical impediments to serve smallholder farmers and, more broadly, individuals at the bottom of the pyramid in rural communities in a financially sustainable way. The first challenge is the high cost to serve. They are highly fragmented and very expensive to reach due to low geographic densities. And the second challenge is their low purchasing power. So with our Babban Gona solution, we have overcome first the purchasing power challenge by providing financially sustainable low-cost credit to our, because of our credit risk mitigation systems, which over the last 10 years, we've deployed financing and maintained an average of a 99% repayment rate on the tens of millions of dollars we provided smallholder farmers. We're able to overcome the high cost to serve while charging very low margins on our products and services by utilizing the same resource, individual, to generate all three of our bundled products and services we provide to our farmers, which are credit, the inputs themselves, agro inputs themselves, and finally, a produce marketing service. This is accomplished by staggering our services delivery across the year. A further reason for the low margins we're able to charge, particularly for our credit business, is the strong risk mitigation systems we have in place. As mentioned, with repayment rates that average approximately 99%, hence, it is for this reason we can price our credit to our members at an interest rate of approximately 1/3 of comparable interest rates from traditional microfinance institutions, and make a profit. An additional critical success factor has been our ability to raise large amounts of commercial debt. In 2018, we were able to close our first institutional financing round of $25 million using an innovative blended financing structure. We are now scaling that to $90 million round, which we have closed the majority to date, including now for the first time tapping into public debt markets. We've launched the first of its kind in Nigeria, a publicly rated, investment grade rated bond to support smallholder farmers. In a world where the challenges are ever rising and the resources to solve these challenges are ever dwindling, our innovative blended financing structure provides one of the most efficient uses of social capital. We call it perpetual impact. A $1 investment in a social investment as subordinated or junior debt can not only catalyze in 3 to 4 times of additional capital, but can revolve perpetually, unlike traditional grant funding, and create perpetual impact with the added bonus of providing interest income to invest in other high-impact opportunities to the social investor. By no means, let me be exceptionally clear, is our solution perfect. As we march towards serving 1 million farmers by 2025, we will face 1 million challenges, which we will have to overcome one at a time. We all have a role in unlocking this $150 billion to solve this challenge. As a talented academic or student, you can invest your talent to help solve some of the million of exceptionally challenging questions we must solve on this journey. As an individual, today you can go to a crowdfunding site like Kiva and lend as little as $25 to a smallholder farmer. As a financing institution, the risks you see can be mitigated. We have achieved a repayment rate of 99% by leveraging advanced technology, including development of powerful artificial intelligence algorithms to monitor farms. As an organization selling products to farmers and rural households, you can provide your products on credit through partners like Babban Gona that are designed to manage rural credit risk. As an agricultural processing company, you can make small farmers key parts of your supplier base and offer forward contracts that empower them to raise capital to improve their yields. And finally, as a philanthropy, think beyond providing grants to nonprofits. Where market solutions exist, consider providing debt to non-traditional partners that crowd in commercial funding and can scale the impact of your work dramatically. In closing, let's pause for a moment and close our eyes and imagine a world where a young man or woman does not live in fear that if their tattered motorcycle is ripped away from them, that their only choice would be a life of crime and terror. Imagine a world where millions of hardworking youth across Africa have other options. I know for a fact these driven and ambitious youth will make the right choice. We can realize that dream as long as we give them that choice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kola. Inspiring talk. We have about 15 minutes for Q&A and discussion. If you can raise your hand, introduce yourself, and make your question as brief as possible. There's already one question from Vincent online who is asking, do you buy the produce from the farmers? And secondly, how are you ensuring mitigating against climate change risk? So if we want to take that one on.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for the question, Vincent. So we do not buy our members' produce. We are a service organization. So what we do is we provide a service to them to help them market their products. So they deposit their grains in, today we've invested in over 100,000 tons of storage capacity. They deposit those grains, we collateralize that, get them a loan against the value, so they have cash in their pocket to meet pressing needs like school fees, et cetera. And then over a period of about 9 months, we then help market those grains for them and typically have been able to enable them to increase their profitability or the price they could get for those grains anywhere from 25 to, in some years, as high as 50%. Now, on the climate change side, we have a very, very robust set of solutions that we use. A couple key highlights is utilizing, there are drought-tolerant seed varieties that are quite effective. And then also, we launched the first weather index insurance product in Nigeria in partnership with Swiss Re. Launched the first yield index, multi-peril yield index insurance across West Africa. And we actually developed and launched, to our knowledge, the first commodity price index insurance product specifically geared to smallholder farmers.
Next question, John?
Yes. As you said, first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Jean Masonio, call me John. I'm from Burundi, East Africa. And I'm here as a Humphrey Fellow. My focus is agriculture and rural development. So as you said, I'm from a country where we've never been with 10 successive years of peace. I mean, every election means insecurity. And I'm born in a war and I'm dying in a war. So, but that's one challenge, but the other challenge is also with food production, with insecurity and other challenges of community. So the problem is our mothers and fathers aging with limited funds and education and technology, and the lowly educated are the ones producing for graduates and the professionals. The problem is that many people are dying of hunger. And the workforce, the young people who still, who have the forced work, are neglecting agriculture because it's maybe non-profitable. Mm-hmm. So now the question is, how can we involve youth and the professionals in food production to ease the task for our mother and the fathers aging with limited funds and education? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. So when youth are running away from agriculture because it's not profitable, they are actually making very rational decisions. So the key is, how do you ensure that it's profitable for a young farmer? So one of the key things why we've been able to attract, and once again, we don't screen for age, but we've been able to attract 70% of our members as youth, is we've designed our model specifically to address the unique challenges that young, small-scale farmers have. Now, those challenges include, one, they tend to have smaller land sizes because of hereditary practices. So our package is designed to really enable them to get very high yields on those lands. So even though it's small, they can be very profitable. Second, they tend to have less access to labor. And so we not just finance, we don't only finance agricultural productivity inputs like seeds, fertilizer, so on and so on, but we also finance access to labor-saving technology as well. This is very critical for young farmers. And then the third piece is young farmers tend to have less savings. So we specifically designed our program to have a zero collateral requirement. So we the collateral that we take for our loans is the crop in the field. So we monitor and manage that crop. So as a young farmer that doesn't have a dime in their pocket, they can still access the necessary financing.
Thank you. One question coming from online, I think it's Carol Coffer, who is asking, what is the extent of female participation in Babban Gona?
So the Babban Gona, we have we're very proud of the fact that we have a very large number of women that we work with. We have multiple programs that we support. We have our maize program, we have our poultry program, and we have a program we've launched called our Women Economic Development Initiative that is specifically geared towards women. And last year alone, we actually helped to train over 100,000 women in models to run small-scale retail operations, and are ramping that up now to help them develop small-scale poultry operations. So we've designed very specific programs that meet the unique cultural requirements in the areas that we operate.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Yurai. I'm a first-year MS Applied Economics student. So you nicely said that usually the youth joins the militia groups because there is high unemployment. And that's basically the cause why they join those militias. So my question is, do you see it as a cause of those of the unemployment and youth seeking the other alternatives, or do you see it more as a symptom of a more wide problems in that region? Because, for example, I think it was like a few weeks ago when there was a military coup in Burkina Faso, and that region is very prone to like all those military coups. Mm-hmm. So I just want to know your opinion. Thank you.
So thank you for the question. So I think the key thing is, there's a very interesting study that I think that was done, I believe, by Ed, your former organization, the African Development Bank, that looked at the evolution of insecurity on the African continent. And one of the key things that has evolved over the last, in the 80s and 90s, the insecurity was typically mostly state actors, larger organizations fighting against the state. What's happened over the last 2 decades is that it's much more fragmented. And and one of the hypotheses of why that fragmentation has happened is because it's so easy for any malicious leader to recruit a small army for themselves, that has led to the fragmentation of where you have many, many, many small groups perpetrating insecurity. I think the case that you gave around a coup and so on and so forth, that's a little bit on a much larger scale than some of the levels of insecurity that we're referring to, which are more isolated, regional, small issues, which are just as devastating.
Thank you. Let's go ahead.
Hi. First of all, thank you so much for your talk. I really enjoyed it. I'm a second-year master's student in applied economics and also have a lot of interest in cooperatives. So my first question is more of clarification. Is Babban Gona's structure, like you said it was a marketing organization, is it itself a federated cooperative where these cooperatives that you train are members, and do they receive returns or do they have to commit a certain amount of their produce to you?
So in my Eisenhower Fellowship, one of the things that I learned was that in most countries, the traditional cooperative model is actually evolving. So they have what they call new generation cooperatives now that are kind of a hybrid structure. So Babban Gona is actually more of a hybrid structure. So our farmers are shareholders in the business, but we actually also are able to bring in additional equity investors as well. So for example, the German government, through the German Development Bank, KfW, is a major equity investor in Babban Gona.
Cool. And also you had talked about in these stages of economic development that after increasing agricultural productivity, then you move into more of higher level, I guess, agribusiness or value addition. And then do you see that as a goal of Babban Gona in the future, or do you see that more as something that these cooperatives would take out finance to pursue themselves?
Well, I see that as a slightly more of a broader goal of across the broader economy, right? Once we're able to ensure that there is a large supply of high quality, low cost raw materials, then it becomes a much easier investment decision for third-party investors to invest in value addition.
Denise online is wondering what is the source of the drought-tolerant seed that you supply farmers with? Where does it come from?
So that was designed by developed by the brilliant maize breeders at the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture.
First of all, thank you very much. You're very inspiring. My name is Martina. I'm a postdoc associate in agricultural economics, and I would like to ask you two questions. The first one is if you have the example of cooperative members that then became parent, and what is happening with their children. Are they probably, as they have a higher income, they're also better educated, so I'm wondering, will they stay on the farm or will they rather exit the agricultural market?
So we'll give you a couple examples. So we ran a survey a few years ago where we asked our members how they're using their increased income. And we were quite pleased to see that over 90% of them were using that income either to send more children to school, because unfortunately farmers are resource constrained and have to make decisions on who goes to school and who doesn't, or they are actually moving their children from lower quality public institutions to higher quality private institutions. So that's the trend that we're seeing there. And I think more broadly, one thing that's really exciting to see is our members who have been with us for very long periods of time. We have one of our members, Haliru Saleh, who was literally with us from day one. So he's farmed with us for 10 years. And when he started, he was farming maybe one and a half hectares. Today, we're supporting him to farm over 16 hectares. So he's grown his farm tenfold, and his income per hectare has doubled. So his income as an individual has grown 20-fold. And so for him, right, the evolution of what he's seen his dreams as possibility is today, if you ask him, what his dream is, his dream is to send his children to an institution like this, Cornell. So to have a smallholder farmer from a very modest background to realize that actually is a possibility for him is very exciting for us.
Yeah. And if I may, a second question, more on climate change. You talk about input for the market. They are usually much more homogeneous. So what about agrobiodiversity? Are you paying attention to it, and how? Thank you so much.
So it's something that we critically look at because at the end of the day, it's just poor practice to continue mining the soil for the same nutrients over and over, and then also pest pressure, et cetera. So one of the things we do is a farm assessment that ensures that we will not finance a farm if it's just been growing maize, corn. To help, and one of the key things we're working on is help to provide our farmers access to products to help them improve their rotation, be it soybeans, potentially peppers, things like that.
Yeah, hi, thanks for your talk. I'm Terry Tucker. Following up on the questions related to cooperatives. A conventional cooperative would have a member-elected board. There would be farmers that would be involved in the governance of the organization. You described this as a hybrid cooperative with members, but also equity investors from outside. What's the role of the farmer members in governance?
So one of the key things that we learned on our Eisenhower Fellowship, that even with cooperatives that have been established for decades in the U.S., there is quite a significant development process to help the members be more effective board members. We see that as a journey that we're working on. Today, the members have representation on the board. Today, the representation is a gentleman who's in the office of the presidency within Nigeria in development. That is their representation on the board. And one of the key things they do that we've also implemented is that they have certain minority control rights that ensure alignment of the institution to them.
Yes. I'd like to first congratulate you for your presentation. I've been a fan for a very long time. I've been following your module since I think 2017. I found it on the internet and I saw your inspiring speech on TED Talk, and it's very, very brilliant. and congratulations for your brilliant work. My question is, in the last 10 years, sorry, let me introduce myself first. I'm also a Humphrey Fellow, like my friend from Burundi. I'm from Mozambique, who also face terrorism in northern Mozambique. And my question is, with this rise in productivity and profitability of farms, mostly involving youth, do you also see a correlation in reduction of terrorism activity in the areas that we operate in? And the second question, operating in a terrorism-affected area is very challenging. Mm-hmm. And usually most donors or even private investors, they tend to shy away from this area. So what are you doing differently to attract investment to those areas?
So I think, thank you for the question, greatly appreciate it. So I think in terms of what we are seeing, the impact, we have a lot of anecdotal information around how young people are now returning to the rural communities now that they see an economic opportunity. It's very difficult, and I would love to find a very smart academic that could help me do this, because one of the challenges on the violence side is that you don't know what would have happened without your intervention, right? Where the violence level would be. So it's hard to predict, what impact you've had. I think when I first started operating in the regions that we worked in, it was not uncommon for me to be coming back home and hearing a bomb in the distance. That has not happened in a while. So we are seeing a reduction in that type of violence. However, I think we have seen some instances of increases in other types of violence in the other areas, as unfortunately, I'm not sure if this has happened in Mozambique, but sometimes what happens is when there is a big push by the military to tackle a problem in one area, it actually causes a problem to move into another area. So we have had some challenges along those lines. Now, to answer your second question, one of the key things I think there are two types of areas with insecurity. Ones where really it's a full-on conflict, and it's very difficult to bring in commercial capital there. And there are areas that are oftentimes on the border of those areas and those are the areas that we focus on. So we focus on those areas that are in periphery that have not yet turned into full-blown conflict, but yet we can be very impactful.
I have something I wanted you to expand on. You mentioned earlier on that you think of yourself as an IT company as well. Could you just spend a minute unpacking some of the things that you're doing that are innovative in that space?
Sure. So I think oftentimes when folks first engage Babban Gona, they think of us as first and foremost as an agricultural company. When they hear about how much we finance farmers, they think of us as a financing company. But the reality is we actually think of ourselves as a technology company. Our largest team within the organization is our technology team. We today have the single largest technology organization dedicated to smallholder farmers on the African continent. We are building dozens and dozens of applications that help support what is effectively a very complex supply chain. Not just supporting the farmers to identify problems on the farms early, but also if you think about last year managing 140,000 acres, which is spread out over 110,000 different individual farms, we moved a two-way supply chain of about 150,000 tons of stuff, right? With a team of over about 3,000 people and moving tens of millions of dollars in multiple directions. So we have to invest in a very robust technology infrastructure to enable all that to work. An example would be the work I mentioned. We built, to our knowledge, the first of its kind artificial intelligence application that was trained with over 2 million images that allows you to basically take a picture of a farm and be able to predict different challenges that a smallholder has. to building the equivalent of Uber in rural Nigeria to move hundreds of thousands of tons of grain through a network of thousands of hundreds of independent transportation contractors and manage payments and logistics tracking and all of that. So it's a very, very complex technology solution.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Please, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Kifle Gabramadhan. I'm calling from Maryland, and I really enjoyed the presentation. And what this program is doing is commendable, and the results speak for themselves. The question I have is, it seems to me that land tenure system is one of the challenges that the smallholder farmers have, because they end up, with small piece of land here and there, which is not very conducive for technology like tractors and so on and so forth. Do you encourage or introduce vertical farming in these areas for vegetables, for flowers, for spices, and so on and so forth? And also lake farming, if that technology is still there. Do you encourage this kind of new technologies?
Thank you for the question. So one of the things that we have as an organization, we do support those types of activities more indirectly, in the sense that what we find is a lot of our members taking their profits from their corn operation and applying it into some of those more complex, higher value crops. I think as an organization, one of the key things that we've done is be very focused on supporting farmers with a very small subset of crops, which has enabled us to really solve some of these very challenging problems of operating at the scale that we do.
I wish we had more time. I know some students have to run to another class, but if you can help me, please give a round of applause to our speaker.